Hey guys, Snoozy here. Today we're going to work on the Frost Nova Sorceress. There is a disclaimer with this build guide, and it's really important that you listen to the disclaimer here. This build is extremely expensive. It is not something you should level with. It's not something you should ladder start with. It is extremely expensive. The more currency you put into it, the more items you get, the better it'll get. And it really does not feel good, in my opinion, until you get to at least the gear that I'm at. And there is much more that I need to be putting into this gear to really get it to go off. It is not going to be a meta build. It's not going to be the fastest clearer. I don't think many people would actually play this in softcore. I think, if anything, people would play it more in hardcore. And even at that, I feel like if I was playing hardcore, I still probably wouldn't play this. I would probably go with the standard, like, Fathom max block kind of build, maybe. But I'm not a hardcore player at the end of the day. This Sorceress build is based off Skull Collector. If you're looking for a standard Frost Nova build, check out some other content creators. I don't really have one up right now. It would be kind of similar gear. We would be using like a Fathom with a Medusa shield, or maybe a Lidless. Or maybe if we really wanted to go zoom, we could do like a Meng Song with sockets and facets. But this build is not a meta build. I don't think it really should be. I think you can make this build a lot better with different items. However, I really wanted to make this with Skull Collector, and that's what I ended up doing, so we'll showcase that. There's a lot of improvements that I still need to do with this, so we're going to go ahead and get started with that. So here we have our stat points. We are going to do enough strength to wear your gear and base dexterity. The most expensive here is going to be 96 strength requirement for your Nightwings. Your vitality and energy needs to be split. I can't do that exactly for you. It's going to depend on your gear. As I don't have lifers, I have to put a lot more into vitality, and you're going to have to find a balance between the two that you like. This is an energy shield build. Resistances are semi-important. Damage to your health will be based off resistances, and I believe for energy shield, unless they've changed it in Project D2, which I haven't seen the notes on that, I believe it's based off of 0 resistances. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's still how it works here. So we want to really get a lot of these points into energy, because it's going to double dip with our Bone Collector. So for our gear, we will be using Skull Collector, not Bone Collector. I don't know why I always call it Bone Collector. It is Skull Collector. It's also important to note that you want to upgrade it into Archon Staff. With Project D2 having cast speed on base staffs, you want to upgrade it to the Elite version to get the 80% cast rate. I think it's like 60 or 40 if you don't upgrade it, so make sure you upgrade it. Since this is our primary weapon and we will be using this throughout the whole build, you're going to want to try to get to 3 to all skills. And the higher the mana after each kill, the better. Other than that, we're really just going to be trying to get 6 sockets so we can put facets in there. As you can see, I focused on the minus resistance more so than the cold skill damage. The reason we're using this is that 3% chance to cast level 25 Bone Armor on casting, and that will absorb a lot of physical damage. Bone Armor on Project Diablo 2 scales off your energy, so we get to double dip with the energy shield and the Bone Armor. Here we're using a Nightwing's Veil, and if you'll notice at the very bottom, second line up, half freeze duration. That's something important to note here, because that will change how you build your build depending on what you're trying to do here. Ideally, get a +1 to all skills, 2 socket, or just 2 sockets if you can't afford the +1. I think you can get +1 on hat. I'm fairly confident you can. This is just a random one I picked up. I don't even have a facet in it, because I was debating if I wanted to even try to puzzle box it or not. Cold facet in here. Mara's Kaleidoscope. You could technically use a rare amulet if you want some more cast speed. Get 2 to sorceress skills. You can get your all resistances on there. Maybe some more mana, life, stuff like that. Frostburns, because they have minus enemy cold resistance, and we do not need any more cast speed for this build. And on top of that, this one has a 25% increase to maximum mana. I went with a 5 all res slam because I'm struggling with having all resistances. We're going to do 2 Sojas here. You're going to want, probably with this build, Life After Kill. I think that's going to end up being better. Mana After Kill is also really good, but you do get quite a bit from your Skull Collector. And on top of that, your Silkweave will give you even more. Silkweave Boots, you're going to want Life After each kill. If you don't have Sojas, this is going to be a mandatory thing in my opinion. Without having your Life After Kill, it is going to be awful. You're going to be constantly chugging health potions as stuff that hits you slowly just takes your health down, and you don't really have a way of recovering that without potions. The reason we're going with the Sojas is because of the increased maximum mana and the flat mana. Try to get those as high as you can. If you can't get them real high, it's not too big of a deal, but if you're really going to min-max, you want to get them as high as you can. We'll go with the belt next. The belt is the reason that I was pointing out the half freeze duration. On Project D2, if you get 2 half freeze durations, you become immune. Now, I like the Snow Clash because you get 2 to all cold skills, which is 1 more than an Arachnid's. You also get some resistance that we're struggling with, and the maximum cold resistance. Thing to note here, though, that is nice is if you need the Castrate because you wanted to switch up other pieces, you might need the Arachnid's Mesh. You are going to get that +1 skill, and you do get an increased maximum mana for a little bit more defensive value. If you're going to go with the Arachnid's Mesh, you're really going to want to find a Cannot Be Frozen somewhere. So I ended up just getting it on the Nightwing's helm here when I was testing which one I preferred. I ended up ultimately going with the Snow Clash belt because it'll scale a little bit better once you start getting into the high-end Nightwings with like 2 open sockets and a slam on all skills. Armor, this is mostly just for testing, and this is kind of how risky you want to be. Viper Magi, just because it gives you the skills, the Castrate, and the all resistances. Now, if you want to go a little more loosey-goosey and you don't mind having lower resistances, Ormus is going to be the way to go with Frost Nova. You get 3 to skills, up to 15% lightning damage, and you can get the sockets in there with facets. Or if you just wanted to go a hybrid, you could put Umrins in there and get, like, I think it's 30 all res for 2 sockets, 15 per. That's entirely up to you on what you want to do. Coat Arms here is what we're going to be using. This is just like standard Coat Arms I use on all my builds. I usually just make 1 Coat Arms and I just move it around my account on whichever character I need it. If you're only going to be playing Sorceress, you might want to do something like this, which is a +3 to Energy Shield and then 1 to Chilling Armor. Ideally, you're going to want to look for these, even if you're not a Sorceress player, but you want 3 to Energy Shield, 1 to Shiver Armor. Those bases have a decent value to them, and the reason is if you're a non-cold Sorceress, you don't have to put any of these points in, so you'll save 4 points by having that Call to Arms in it, and you don't have to go and put any of these in if you're not going Energy Shield, but still want a little bit of an Energy Shield. So you can save up to 8 points if you have a Call to Arms and then a staff like that with 3 to Energy Shield and Shiver. On this, you'll actually come out ahead. You'll get 4 to Energy Shield if I'd make Call to Arms into here, where here you're only getting +1 and then +2, so that's only 3. So you will get a higher Energy Shield if you happen to make it inside of the War Staff here. The other option is you can make a Memory and a 4-socketed staff, and I don't remember. Is it 8 or 9 Energy Shield? I don't remember off the top of my head how many it is. I think they switched things around a little bit this and took stuff off Energy Shield and put it into Sorc skills or vice versa. But that's also another option, especially if you're getting battle orders and battle command from like another player with a Call to Arms, or if you have a Barbarian in your game. Mercenary is also not cheap. It's incredibly expensive. The resistances aren't maxed. You can toy with these 3 slots to really get them up if you would prefer to have them. You could put Tri-Res Boots on here and you could easily get that all maxed out. He stays alive. I really don't have a problem with it. We're going to go with the standard of the Infinity. The Infinity Conviction R is going to lower the cold resistance of monsters. The Ferocity helmet is always going to be indestructible, even for players, so you always want to put it in Ethereal. I just put it in a Bone Visage here. The reason we're using this for the Mercenary is because there's also a Cham, so he cannot be frozen, which is nice, and he has a 12% chance to cast level 10 Taunt on striking. So it's almost like a little battle orders that goes out, and everything it hits will attack him instead of you. This gives you a lot of survivability. This does not work with bosses, so be aware of that. On top of that, we're going to use the Innocence. We put it in a Shadow Plate. Sacred Armor, I think, is technically better, but I'm not too careful on what I put these bases in, just as long as they have enough resale value. And the Shadow Plate seems to be good enough. But the main reason that we're doing this is because you get the Blade Shield when equipped, which you can see on him. Blade Shield can proc on hit effects such as Taunt and Chain Lightning from Infinity, so this will really help get him going with the Taunt, especially because he does not have a lot of attack speed. I think the only attack speed with the stuff he has is going to really just be his gloves. So you could change these 3 slots out, no problem. I just put Gore Riders on for the Crushing Blow. For the skills, we will be doing 1 into Warmth, like pretty much every other Sorceress build. Because we are Energy Shield heavy, we'll go all the way down to Energy Shield. If you want a more defensive option, max Energy Shield before some of your cold skills to get it fully made up. Energy Shield's been changed in Project D2. You no longer need to max Telekinesis to reduce the damage taken from mana. We're at 118% right now. It's not maxed. If you want more, like I said, you want more defensive, max it. You're going to lose damage doing so. The other downside with this build is since we're not maxing Teleport, right now it's a minus 36% damage reduction for 1 second. So when you Telestomp stuff, you're not doing full damage for another second. This doesn't seem like too much of an issue with this build. But if you're really looking for a zoom build, this isn't going to be the build for you. For cold skills, we're going to max Frost Nova because that's what the build is built around. And then we're going to do Ice Bolt and Shiver Armor since that is the synergies. Shiver Armor is nice because it gives you a defense rating. Maybe you won't get hit as much. And then we also do max the Cold Mastery. If you want, you can also go all the way down to 1 point in Frozen Orb, which I actually would recommend. Some bosses can just do a lot of damage, and it's nice to have a little ranged option here and there, especially if you don't have the full kit and gear. I guess we skipped over the charms, so we'll go back to those. It's going to be the standard Annie and Hellfire Torch. And then I like Geeds in my builds, but most people will probably switch this out for another Skiller. You'll just run Skillers the whole way across. This is the point where I really need to start investing more. I would probably try to hit 30 or 42, maybe even 60 faster hit recovery if you can with your charms. Rest of them you'll want lifers, because remember, the more life that you really get, the less points you have to put in this vitality. Rest of our charms are going to be resistances because I'm really trying to get those up. On top of that, that's really the whole build. You can pre-buff since Season 11 now with your battle orders in town. Make sure you put up your energy shield or you're going to have a really bad time. This is just a little baby map to kind of showcase the build. Poison is extremely annoying on this build, so if you're going to go with a rare route, try to get like 75% reduced poison duration or something like that on there. And it plays just like every other Frost Nova build. There's nothing really more to it. You just teleport around and spam. Cold immunes your mercenary should take quick work of. And you do need to remember, this build is not maxing teleport, so you're not going to have full damage in the very beginning. The more facets you put in, the more damage you're going to get. You get an absurd amount of minus resistance on this build, especially if you're going full on with the facets, doing the -5 instead of like the straight damage ones. Ideally, if you're going to go full into this build, you're going to want 5/5s cold, which are very expensive. I think I was seeing them anywhere between like 1 to 2.5 high runes while I was building this. I got most of my facets between like I got a couple for Ist, I think it was, and I think I was paying Gull for the -5s. Right around there. Ist to Gull, depending if I could get a good deal on them or not. They seem to move pretty quick, so a lot of people seem to be buying facets at this point in time in the season, so your mileage may vary depending on it. The one big downside with this is because we are using the Skull Collector. If you've noticed, we haven't actually procced Skull Collector once, even though it's a 3% chance. I realize that you really can't bump that up to higher of a 3% chance, because it would kind of be a little imbalanced, but I do feel like 3% might be a little bit low on that item, but it's still a really fun item, and when it procs, you can actually notice the difference. So far, we haven't had to use any potions. The build's pretty self-sufficient. If you don't get your resistances up pretty high, though, you will notice your life and mana will actually drain pretty quick. I really do recommend getting the resistances up, which is why I'm still using that Viper Magi. If you really go hard into the build and you can get the 5 to all res, especially if you can get 5 to all res with life on there, you can get your resistances capped up pretty good, but it is going to be pretty expensive. We'll go up and do the boss real quick. I don't think we'll do the whole map on this character because it's pretty much just more of the same. If you can see, sometimes the aura will come off of the mercenary and they'll get the little like green, and I think there might be purple in there. That is your taunt. Like I said, that does not affect the boss. The mercenary is almost dead there, so we will go ahead and give him a quick potion. I'm not quite sure what hit him. Maybe it was the poison or a monster I wasn't looking at. You need to be careful with the poison because poison damage does go directly through your energy shield, and we do run... I'm running kind of high life for what I would say for this build. I would probably, if I respec again, I would probably grab the orb, frozen orb skill, and I probably would drop my health to about maybe 700-800 with battle orders and see how that feels. A lot of that is going to be based off your risk tolerance and really what kind of content you're pushing with this. We finally have our bone armor has procced. I don't know when it procced. I wasn't really paying attention. So now we have a buffer between our physical damage. But this is the Frost Nova build. You just really telestomp stuff, run around. This might not be the most exciting map in the world. It was a T2 with just random mods on it. The only real time you have to be careful, overly careful with this build with the amount of gear I have, is when you're starting jumping into Fanat mobs. Especially if it's like Fanat and Might together and you don't have a bone armor proc up, that can be a little bit dangerous. Or if you're not paying attention to your health and you've been poisoned for a long time or have a strong poison on you. Might not be a bad idea if you're really bad at it to just take antidote potions with you, or instead of having full juice on your belt, have maybe 1 or 2 rows of just health potions to deal with that. That's why if you can, I would highly recommend get more life after kill on pieces you can't. The Skull Collector gives us a decent amount of mana after kill, especially with the Silk Weaves. I don't really find mana to be too much of an issue. I find the health not regenerating with the life after kill I have as fast. And it looks like my internet is disconnecting, so we're just going to save and exit out of there. And that will be it for this build. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Like I said, this is a very expensive build. I would say the minimum, if you're going to follow this build guide, is to get to about the gear I have to really have a good time. Under that amount of gear, it doesn't really feel too great. There was a big difference when I got the Skull Collector and the 6 sockets in it with the facets. But you do get almost, with conviction, about a -100 resistance. And that is a pretty big deal. If you look on the wiki, they actually do have an article. I'll link it in the descriptions. The article will talk about how the minus resistances work on Project D2, and it's important to understand that. That way you can balance how much minus resistances you think you need. If you're only going to be running a map where they only have, 50 cold resistance, maybe it would make sense mathematically to be running more cold damage rather than minus resistances. But that's something you'll need to figure out for yourself. With this build, you're really going to want to try to play it a lot to kind of see what your risk tolerance is and with your level of aggression. I generally don't think about what I'm doing, and I'll telestomp anything in the game. I don't care. So I build a little bit more defensive. But that is the Frost Nova Sorceress. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if you like the build. Like I said, it is not the fastest build out there, but it is fun. So I'll talk to you guys later. Toodles.